You don't look like someone running toward a wedding, you look like someone finally running away.
Sienna Vale's wedding dress was torn. Her bare feet were bleeding slightly on the hot asphalt, and she had just jumped inside a limousine that was definitely not hers. Wedding, cancelled. Dignity, questionable. Plan, non-existent. And then the door on the other side opened, revealing Phoenix Sterling, the city's most feared millionaire, who looked at her with an expression somewhere between surprise and pure amusement. "Well," he said, his deep voice loaded with sarcasm, "it's not every day I see a bride in my limousine. Bad wedding or weird fetish."
First things first, hello! I'm Kay, the mind behind this channel. And right now on screen, you're seeing the comments from Deborah Jones and Sue Jackson. Thank you so much for commenting. And tell me something, what would you think of a woman who leaves her fiancé at the altar because of money? Answer down below, and maybe your comment will appear in the next video.
Chapter 1. Spectacular Escape.
Legionnaires.
I didn't mean to end up here, but I can't go back.
I know.
The afternoon light came through the windows of the Vale house, golden and soft, illuminating Sienna standing before the full-length mirror, the wedding dress wrapped around her in layers of tulle and lace, perfect in every detail, suffocating in its flawless beauty. Maggie adjusted the veil with trembling fingers, her smile not quite reaching her tired eyes. "You look beautiful, sweetheart." "Thanks, Mom." Sienna hesitated, biting her lower lip. The question escaped before she could stop it. "Are you sure about this?" Maggie's sigh carried the weight of 2 years of struggle. "Sienna, I don't want you to marry without love. I never did. But the company is going bankrupt, and the alliance with the Langley family saves everything." Sienna hated how her own voice sounded resigned, as if she were reciting a script she'd memorized months ago. "Your father wouldn't have wanted this for you. Marrying out of obligation." Maggie's voice broke slightly, and Sienna felt the familiar knot tighten in her throat. She touched her mother's hand, trying to offer comfort she didn't feel herself. "Dad died 2 years ago, Mom, and he would have wanted you to be okay. Trevor is kind, polite. He takes care of you too, but you don't love him." The statement hung between them like an inescapable truth. Sienna let out a humorless laugh, letting herself fall into the nearby chair. "Do I like him? Like, he's boring and kind of ugly, that huge nose and the thinning hair, and he talks about stocks all the time like they're the most fascinating thing in the universe." Maggie laughed, a sad and wet sound. "Then why marry him?" "Because he's good, Mom." The words came out softer now, almost a whisper. "He's always been kind to me, to you. He helped when Dad died. He's perfect on paper, just doesn't give me butterflies in my stomach, doesn't make my heart race, doesn't make me want to wake up early just to see him." "Sienna, I'll be fine, I promise." It was a lie, and they both knew it. The afternoon dragged on with cruel slowness. Sienna picked up the documents Trevor had asked for, driving to his office downtown. She hadn't warned him she was coming. It was a surprise, something to break the tedious routine their relationship had become. Trevor's secretary, Diana, wasn't at her desk. Strange, but not alarming. Sienna walked down the silent hallway, her heels echoing on the cold marble. The door to his office was ajar, just a crack, but enough. Sounds, strange, muffled, the kind of sound that made something in Sienna's stomach turn before her brain even processed what she was hearing. She pushed the door open, Trevor and Diana on his desk, kissing, hands tangled in hair, clothes disheveled, completely oblivious to the world, until the moment Trevor opened his eyes and saw her standing there. He jumped like he'd been electrocuted. "Sienna, this isn't what it looks like." Sienna's body didn't move, frozen in a strange state between shock and something that looked dangerously like relief. "You're cheating, 1 day before our wedding. I can't explain." The words came out rushed, desperate. Diana was fixing her blouse with trembling hands, her face red with shame. "Sorry, I didn't know you guys were getting married tomorrow." Sienna blinked, processing that absurd statement. "How did you not know? It's in all the papers." "I don't read the paper." Diana's voice was almost inaudible. The laugh that escaped from Sienna was harsh, bordering on hysteria. She turned to Trevor, and all the contradictory emotions boiling inside her exploded at once. You're the most boring guy I know. You talk about stocks and the market all the time. How did you get another woman?" "Sienna, I didn't even know you had the capacity to cheat. You're so boring. You don't even have personality." "How?" Her voice rose with each word, echoing off the office walls. Trevor looked genuinely offended. "I have personality. You wear golf-patterned sweaters. Voluntarily." Sienna knew she was being irrational, but she couldn't stop. Adrenaline coursed through her veins like fire. Golf is a respectable sport. "I don't care about golf." She took a deep breath, trying to regain some control. When she spoke again, her voice was lower, but loaded with crystal clarity. You know what? I should be sad or angry, but I'm just relieved. Relieved? Trevor echoed, incredulous. Because I finally have a reason to cancel, but also shocked because you managed to cheat. You, the blandest man on the planet. Sienna felt tears burning in her eyes, but they were tears of frustration, not sadness. Sienna, please, we can work this out. No, it's over. Wedding canceled. She spun on her heels and left, slamming the door hard enough to make the pictures on the walls shake. The conversation with Maggie was shorter than Sienna expected. Mom, Trevor cheated on me. Maggie almost dropped the teacup she was holding. Him? Trevor? I know. I'm shocked too. I thought he was too busy with spreadsheets to have an affair. Sienna's voice wavered between laughter and tears. Are you okay? The concern in Maggie's eyes was genuine, deep. Sienna sank into the couch, feeling the weight of everything fall on her. I'm confused. Like, part of me is happy because I have an excuse not to get married, but part is offended because he cheated on me. The guy I thought was ugly got someone else. Sienna. And now what do we do? The wedding is tomorrow. Guests, church, everything paid for. Panic began to seep in, replacing the earlier adrenaline. Maggie sat next to her, taking her hands. We cancel. You're not marrying a cheater, but the company, the alliance, I'll figure it out. But you're not marrying him. The firmness in Maggie's voice left no room for argument. Sienna nodded, picking up the phone with trembling hands. The call to Trevor was brief, cutting. Wedding canceled. Don't show up tomorrow. Sienna, wait. We can talk. It was a mistake. Pre-wedding stress. His voice was pathetic, pleading. Stress is forgetting the flowers. Cheating is a choice. Each word came out crystal clear, final. My mom and your mom are friends. This will destroy their relationship. Sienna felt the anger burn stronger. Should have thought of that before you stuck your tongue in your secretary's mouth. She hung up before he could respond, the sound of the click echoing in the silence of the room. The night was long. Sienna didn't sleep, tossing and turning, her mind spinning in endless circles. Could she really not show up? Did she have the courage to cancel everything? When the sun rose, she still didn't have an answer. Wedding day. The church was packed. Hundreds of people, all dressed in their best clothes, whispering among themselves with polite smiles. Sienna arrived in her dress, the heavy fabric like chains around her body. She had chickened out. Sweetheart, are you sure? Maggie held her hands, her eyes searching for hers. No. The honesty escaped before Sienna could filter it. But so many people came, and the Langley family, and our company. Sienna, you don't have to. I know, but maybe I can? The words sounded empty even to her own ears. The aisle to the altar seemed to stretch infinitely. Each step was a battle, each breath a conscious effort. Trevor waited at the altar, visibly sweating, his expression a mixture of regret and desperate hope. The priest began, his voice echoing through the silent church. Sienna Vale, do you take Trevor Langley as... Sienna looked at Trevor. She saw his big nose, his thinning hair, the boring expression he always had. She remembered the betrayal, the secretary, how she had felt more relieved than devastated. Your husband, in joy and in sorrow. I can't! The words exploded from her, too loud, too desperate. The silence that followed was absolute, suffocating. Sienna? Trevor's voice trembled. She stepped back once, then again. I'm sorry, I can't. You cheated on me, and you're boring, and I don't love you. And then she ran, literally ran from the altar, the long dress dragging behind her like a ghostly tail. The guests erupted in shocked murmurs, some people standing up, others just watching open-mouthed. Sienna, come back. Trevor's voice echoed behind her, but Sienna didn't stop. The dress was too long. She stumbled, heard the horrible sound of fabric tearing. It didn't matter. She pulled the hem hard, tearing more, freeing her legs. She kicked off her high heels, feeling the cold marble beneath her bare feet. She ran through the church, pushed the heavy doors, burst out into the street bathed in morning sun. People on the street stopped to stare. A bride, torn dress, barefoot, running like her life depended on it. Don't stare. Just a bride running away. Normal, Sienna yelled to no one in particular, her voice carrying a note of hysteria she didn't recognize. And then she saw it. A black limousine, door open, driver distracted looking at his phone. Perfect hiding place. Sienna didn't think, just acted. She jumped inside, throwing herself onto the soft leather seat, closing the door behind her. She was breathing heavily, her heart beating so hard it seemed to want to escape from her chest. The door on the other side opened. Sienna froze, her whole body tensing like a rope about to snap. A man entered the limousine, and the air immediately changed. He was tall, impeccable suit, molding a body that suggested contained power, dark hair perfectly arranged, eyes so black they seemed to swallow the light. But it was his presence that really hit her, something intimidating and magnetic at the same time, making every nerve in her body wake up on alert. Phoenix Sterling. He looked at her, one eyebrow arching slowly, and then that smile appeared. It wasn't kind, it was amused, provocative, dangerous. "Well," he said, and his voice was deep, loaded with a sarcasm that seemed to caress each word. "It's not every day I see a bride in my limousine. Bad wedding or weird fetish." Sienna tried to speak, but her words came out in a breathless gasp. This isn't, I thought, you thought it was an empty limousine to hide in." He settled into the opposite seat, completely relaxed, as if finding runaway brides in his car was a common occurrence. "Yes," Sienna's voice came out small, uncertain. His smile deepened, becoming malicious in a way that made something in her stomach turn interesting. Pause. He studied her with eyes that seemed to see through every layer she tried to maintain. "You know who I am?" "No," but even as she said it, something in her memory stirred. That face, that name people whispered with respect and fear. Phoenix Sterling. He let the name hang between them. "And you just broke into my limousine." Sienna's blood froze. Phoenix Sterling, the ruthless millionaire? He tilted his head, seeming to consider. Ruthless is rude. "I prefer strategically difficult." Pause. Those dark eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made it hard to breathe. "And you are about to leave." Sienna reached for the door handle. The sound of the electronic lock clicking made her freeze. "Oh, no." His voice was soft, almost amused. "You broke into my car. Now I want the full story. You can't lock me in here." Indignation colored her voice, but there was something more, something she didn't want to name, a chill down her spine that wasn't exactly fear. "I can, and I am." He leaned slightly forward, and Sienna felt the space between them shrink, even though he hadn't actually moved. "So, you ran away from your wedding." "Maybe." She lifted her chin, refusing to be intimidated. "Maybe doesn't work when you're in a torn dress, barefoot, and hiding in a stranger's limousine." His eyes traveled over her, not lasciviously, but assessingly, as if he were solving an interesting puzzle. "This is very dramatic. I approve." "You approve?" Sienna's voice went up an octave. "Yes, boring would be accepting an unhappy marriage. You were dramatic. Respectable." There was something genuine behind the sarcasm now, something that made Sienna's chest tighten. She blinked, completely confused that he was laughing. "You're weird, and you're a trespasser. We're even." Pause. "What's the runaway bride's name?" Hesitation. But what difference did it make now? Sienna. Sienna Vale. Pleasure, Sienna. The way he said her name, with that deep and precise voice, made something run down her spine. "And now tell me, why did you run?" The words came out in a torrent. "Because he cheated on me, one day before, with his secretary." Phoenix laughed, a rich sound that filled the confined space of the limousine. "Classic, cliché, but effective. And you found out?" "I saw it, on his desk. It was horrible. And even so, you went to the wedding." There was genuine curiosity in his voice now, the sarcasm receding slightly. Sienna sank into the seat, all the adrenaline finally draining and leaving only tiredness. "I chickened out. So many people. Pressure, my mother's company." She sighed, the sound carrying the weight of 1,000 wrong decisions. "But when it came time for the I do, I couldn't. So you ran, tore the dress, took off the shoes, jumped into a stranger's limousine." He was smiling now, a genuine smile that completely transformed his face. "A perfect summary. You're chaotic." Phoenix leaned back, looking satisfied. "I like it." Sienna's heart jumped inconveniently. "Are you going to turn me back in?" "I should." He studied her for a long moment, and Sienna felt that look like a physical touch. "But where's the fun in that?" Pause. "I'll make you a proposition." "What proposition?" Caution tinged her words. "I help you disappear for today, let you hide from family, ex-fiancé, all the drama. In exchange?" He leaned in again, and this time Sienna noticed the movement, noticed how the space between them seemed to carry an electric charge. "You tell me the complete story, with details. Why would you do this?" The words came out in a whisper. "Because I'm bored." His eyes never left hers. "And your unexpected entertainment." Pause. Softer now. "Deal?" Sienna should say no. Should demand to be released. Call her mother. Deal with the mess she'd created. But there was something about Phoenix Sterling, something dangerous and fascinating, that made her want to stay, just for a moment, just to breathe before facing the storm waiting for her. "Deal." Phoenix smiled, and it was like watching a predator recognize its prey. "Charles," he spoke to the driver, "drive anywhere away from here." The limousine began to move, smooth and silent. Sienna rested her head on the seat, processing the absolute insanity of what she was doing. "I can't believe I'm running away with a stranger. Rich stranger," Phoenix corrected her, that sharp humor back in his voice. "There's a difference." "There isn't." "There is. I have a better limousine," Sienna laughed. She couldn't help it. After everything, after the betrayal, the almost wedding, the dramatic escape, she was sitting in an expensive limousine with a dangerous billionaire and she was laughing. "You're ridiculous." Phoenix watched her, something shifting in his expression, becoming softer, more real. "And you're a runaway bride. We're a perfect match." Sienna's heart raced treacherously. She looked at him, really looked, and saw a man who seemed as tired of his world as she was of hers. Dangerous and intimidating, absolutely, but also interesting and unexpectedly real. "Perfect is an exaggeration," she murmured, but couldn't stop the small smile that curved her lips. "Maybe," Phoenix agreed, his eyes locked on hers, "but definitely interesting." The limousine drove through the city, carrying a runaway bride and a bored billionaire, and Sienna felt that something had changed. She didn't know what would happen next, didn't know how she would fix the mess she'd left behind, but for the first time in a long time, she felt something beyond resignation. She felt alive.
I agree with Phoenix. They're definitely a perfect match, but they'll still have to go through a lot.
Chapter 2, Full Story and Refuge.
If you stay, everything in your life will change.
The limousine glided through the city streets, with a smoothness that contrasted violently with the chaos Sienna had left behind. She could still feel her heart beating erratically against her ribs, and at each traffic light they passed, she expected someone to recognize her and shout, "There's the crazy bride!" Phoenix Sterling, on the other hand, seemed completely relaxed. He had settled into the leather seat, as if finding women in torn wedding dresses was a routine part of his Tuesday. "So, Sienna Vale," he began, that deep voice carrying a tone of barely disguised amusement. "Start from the beginning. Why were you going to marry a cheater?" Sienna let out a long, dramatic sigh, letting her head fall against the backrest. "It's a long story." "I have time," Phoenix gestured vaguely to the luxurious interior of the vehicle. "And you have a torn dress. Neither of us is going anywhere anytime soon." She stared at him for a moment, looking for some sign that he was mocking her, but all she found was genuine curiosity mixed with that sharp humor that seemed to be an integral part of his personality. "Fine." Sienna took a deep breath, preparing to relive the mess that was her life. Trevor Langley, boyfriend of 2 years, kind, polite, and absurdly boring. No spice, no charm, and, to be completely honest, kind of ugly. Phoenix arched an eyebrow, clearly interested. "You're being very specific about the kind of ugly." "Huge nose." The words came out in an explosion, as if Sienna had been holding that observation in for too long. "Thinning hair, and he wears golf-patterned sweaters, voluntarily, to social events." The laugh that escaped from Phoenix was rich and genuine, completely transforming the charged atmosphere of the car. "Questionable design choices. Very questionable," Sienna agreed vehemently, feeling something relax in her chest. "But here's the thing, he was always good to me, to my mother too. When my father died 2 years ago, Trevor really helped a lot. My mother's company started sinking financially, and he offered an alliance through marriage. His family is rich and powerful, so it would be a business merger wrapped in veil and flowers. A modern, arranged marriage," Phoenix observed, and there was something in his tone that suggested familiarity with the concept. "Exactly that." Sienna ran her hands through her hair, undoing what was left of the elaborate hairstyle that had taken hours to create. "My mother didn't want me to marry without love, but she desperately needed the financial alliance, and she likes Trevor a lot. His mother and she are longtime friends, which made everything even more complicated." Phoenix leaned slightly forward, and Sienna noticed how his eyes seemed to absorb every detail of the story. "Extremely complicated. Very," Sienna emphasized. "I was going to marry him because, on paper, he was absolutely perfect. Kind, polite, stable as a rock, predictable to the point of monotony, except he was also boring to the bone. But he represented security, you know? And after losing my father and seeing my mother struggling, security seemed like a smart choice. And then he cheated," Phoenix completed, as if he were following the points of a mathematical equation. "One day before the wedding, the indignation returned in full force. With Diana, his secretary, on his desk, for God's sake. Not in a fancy hotel, not somewhere minimally creative, on the desk where he organizes Excel spreadsheets." Phoenix laughed out loud this time, his head falling back against the seat. Maximum cliché elevated to the 10th power. I know. Sienna felt her own laughter bubble up. And you know what the worst part of it all was? There's something worse than betrayal on top of spreadsheets, Phoenix asked with genuine interest. Yes. I was completely confused about how to feel. Sienna gestured broadly, almost hitting the window. Like, part of me was relieved because I finally had a legitimate excuse to cancel that whole farce. But another part was deeply offended because he, of all people, managed to get another woman. Phoenix stared at her for a moment before bursting into laughter. You were offended that he had the competence to cheat. Yes, Sienna exclaimed, feeling her cheeks heat up. He's so bland, so monotonous. How does he have enough charisma to maintain a secret affair? That requires social skills I genuinely didn't believe he possessed. Maybe Diana likes golf, Phoenix suggested with a mischievous smile. Sienna let out a laugh that was half sob. Probably. They must have passionate conversations about clubs and handicaps. She sighed, the humor draining quickly. I canceled everything yesterday. Called, broke up, told him not to show up at the church. But this morning, when I woke up and saw everyone getting ready, all those people who traveled from far away, all that expectation, I just completely chickened out. I went to the church thinking I could fake normalcy. But you couldn't, Phoenix observed, and there was no judgment in his voice, just observation. And when it came time for the I do, when I looked at his boring face at the altar, Sienna shook her head, the memory still fresh and painful, total panic. I saw that huge nose, remembered him with his tongue stuck in Diana's mouth, and just ran like my life depended on it, tearing the dress in an extremely dramatic fashion in the process. Phoenix added with evident approval. It was an accident, Sienna protested, but she was smiling. The dress was too long, and I needed mobility. It was purely functional, but it was incredibly cinematic, Phoenix insisted. And now, reality came back like a bucket of cold water. Sienna looked at the phone she had silenced, seeing notifications exploding on the screen. I don't know. My mother must be having a heart attack with worry. The company is still sinking financially, and Trevor probably mobilized half the city to look for me like I'd been kidnapped by aliens. The phone vibrated insistently, showing 20 missed calls in rapid succession. Shit, Sienna murmured. Family, Phoenix asked. Mom, Trevor, Trevor's mom, my aunt, cousin, uncle I didn't even know had my number. Sienna listed with growing despair. Basically everyone who was at the church and then some. Are you going to answer? There was genuine curiosity in the question. Not yet. Sienna turned off the phone completely, the gesture seeming final. I need to think first. Organize my thoughts before facing the apocalypse I created. Smart decision, Phoenix agreed, and then was silent for a moment, as if he were considering something important. Do you need a place to stay? Sienna blinked, confused. What do you mean? A temporary hideout, he elaborated, as if he were offering coffee instead of asylum. Until you decide how you want to deal with this whole situation without being bombarded by hysterical calls. You're offering? Sienna couldn't complete the sentence, torn between disbelief and something dangerously close to hope. My mansion has rooms to spare, Phoenix said with that studied casualness, and it's literally the last place in the universe where anyone would look for a runaway bride. Why would you do this for me? The question came out in a suspicious whisper. Phoenix studied her for a long moment, those dark eyes impossible to completely decipher. Because you're quality entertainment in a life that's become predictably boring. And also because I respect the courage to run away from a marriage that would make you unhappy for the rest of your life. Something about the sincerity of those words made Sienna's chest tighten. Have you ever run away from a wedding? Phoenix's expression became somber for a fraction of a second, a cloud passing quickly over the sun. Almost got married once. Didn't work out for reasons I won't go into details about right now. What happened? Sienna asked softly. Story for another day. When you've recovered your sanity, Phoenix deflected skillfully. So, do you accept the temporary refuge, or would you rather face the horde of enraged relatives immediately? Sienna knew she should refuse, should demand that he take her home, where she would face the consequences of her actions like a responsible adult. But there was something about Phoenix Sterling, something simultaneously dangerous and comforting, that made her want to accept the absurd offer. Okay, she finally agreed, but only until I figure out a plan that doesn't involve moving to another country and assuming a fake identity. The smile Phoenix gave her was absolutely predatory. Deal accepted. Phoenix Sterling's mansion wasn't just big, it was obscenely, ridiculously, cinematically huge. Sienna got out of the limousine, still barefoot and in her torn dress, and simply stopped to stare at the modern structure of glass and concrete that rose before her, like a monument to architectural excess. This is very big, she murmured, suddenly feeling very small. It's functional, Phoenix responded with studied indifference, as if that palace were just an ordinary apartment. Come on, I'll show you the guest room before you have an aesthetic breakdown. They had just entered the marble hall when a male voice echoed from the upper floor. Phoenix, why is there a bride in our house? Sienna looked up and saw a younger man descending the curved staircase with an expression of pure perplexity. He was clearly related to Phoenix. They had the same sharp bone structure and dark eyes, but where Phoenix emanated controlled danger, this man radiated friendly curiosity. Long story involving churches, betrayal, and trespassing, Phoenix summarized. Cole, this is Sienna. Sienna, my brother Cole, who apparently doesn't know how to ask normal welcome questions. Cole descended the rest of the stairs, circling Sienna as if she were an interesting sculpture in a museum. Hi, why exactly are you in a wedding dress in an advanced state of destruction? Because I ran away from my wedding, jumped into your brother's limousine thinking it was empty, and now apparently I'm temporarily living with you guys, Sienna offered, feeling the total absurdity of the situation. Cole stopped, processed, and then looked at Phoenix with evident admiration. You kidnapped a bride? She broke into my limousine, Phoenix corrected with exaggerated patience. And I merely offered humanitarian refuge. This is completely insane, Cole declared, but he was smiling widely. I love it. Officially, welcome to the Sterling Asylum, Sienna. Fair warning that we have tendencies to attract chaos. Thanks, Sienna responded, torn between laughter and complete existential confusion. The guest room was bigger than the entire apartment where Sienna had lived during college. Phoenix opened the door with a casual gesture, revealing an impeccably decorated space in shades of gray and white, with a king-size bed that looked like it had been stolen from a 5-star hotel. You can stay here as long as you need, he said, pointing to the various doors. Bathroom there, closet there, balcony with a view of the garden that no one ever uses over there. Thank you. Sienna entered slowly, feeling like she had fallen into an alternate reality. Seriously, this is very generous for someone who is essentially a stranger who broke into your car. I'm not as bad as people say, Phoenix commented, leaning against the doorframe with that casual elegance that was probably genetic. What exactly do people say about you? Sienna asked, curiosity winning over caution. That I'm ruthless in business, emotionally cold, and dangerously vindictive when provoked. He listed as if he were reading ingredients from a recipe. And is it true? Sienna looked at him directly. Phoenix considered the question seriously. In business? Absolutely, but not with runaway brides who break into my limousine looking for asylum. You're definitely an exception to my usual rules. He paused, that half-crooked smile appearing. Rest a bit. I'll have Cole get you normal clothes, unless you plan to continue wearing torn tulle as a fashion statement. You don't have to. Sienna started to protest. Sienna, you're literally in a destroyed wedding dress, Phoenix interrupted with implacable logic. You definitely need functional clothes, unless you plan to never leave this room again. Sienna looked down, seeing the deplorable state of what was once a $5,000 dress, and let out a tired laugh. Extremely valid point. Dinner in an hour, Phoenix informed, already turning to leave. And we have a lot to talk about regarding how we're going to manage the media disaster that's probably exploding right this very moment. He left, closing the door softly behind him, and Sienna finally allowed herself to fall onto the absurdly comfortable bed. What the hell did I do? She asked the ceiling, but for the first time all day, she was smiling. Chapter 3. Media, Scandal, and Chaos.
They turned my escape into a scandal.
We'll handle it.
Sienna was having the best dream of her life when someone started pounding on the door like the world was on fire. Sienna, you're in the papers! Cole's voice cut through the wood with zombie apocalypse urgency. She opened her eyes reluctantly, looked at the clock, and seriously considered committing homicide. 6 a.m. Go away, or I'm using this pillow as a weapon. The door exploded open, and Cole practically jumped on the bed, waving a tablet like a surrender flag. Look! Sienna grabbed the tablet, blinked to focus, and felt her brain short-circuit. The headline screamed, "Bride flees altar and is kidnapped by billionaire." The photo showed her, torn dress and barefoot, hurriedly entering Phoenix's limousine. The subheadline was worse. Trevor Langley says bride was taken against her will by business rival Phoenix Sterling. Shit, Sienna whispered, feeling the blood drain from her face. Cole scrolled with disturbing enthusiasm. There's more. Look at the other headlines. Flight or betrayal. Bride abandons altar for millionaire. Phoenix Sterling steals rival's bride in broad daylight. Was wedding a facade for secret affair. Langley family in shock. She was coerced by power. This isn't happening, Sienna murmured, shaking her head. This is definitely not happening. I'm still asleep, having a terrible nightmare. Very real, sweetie, Cole confirmed with inappropriate cheerfulness. The door opened again, and Phoenix entered with 2 cups of coffee, looking criminally calm. Good morning. Sleep well. Good morning. Sienna pointed at the tablet with wild gestures. I'm in the papers. As kidnapped. Phoenix handed her a coffee with admirable calm. Technically, you broke into my limousine. I'm the victim here. Phoenix, this isn't a joke. Sienna felt the urge to throw the coffee at him, but she needed the caffeine. I know. He took a sip of his own coffee, unperturbed. But panicking doesn't solve anything. Trevor is using this to look like a victim and deflect attention from his own cheating. Why would he do that? Sienna asked, though she already knew the answer. Because now he's the publicly abandoned groom, Phoenix explained patiently. And I'm the rich villain who steals brides. Extremely convenient narrative for someone who got caught with his tongue in his secretary's mouth. Cole waved the tablet again. And there's more. Look at social media. The hashtag Jacha Runaway Bride was trending. Sienna read the theories with growing horror. She was having an affair with Sterling for months. Sterling paid her to ruin Langley. Disguised corporate warfare. She was kidnapped and nobody's doing anything. Plot twist. She never wanted to marry, and Sterling is the hero. People think we were having an affair, Sienna exclaimed. Indignant. Apparently so, Phoenix confirmed with dry humor. And that I paid you. And that I kidnapped you. Pick your favorite narrative. None of them are true, Sienna protested. But people love drama. Phoenix paused, studying her. You need to talk to your mother. She must be worried. My mother! Guilt hit like a train. She must be desperate. Sienna grabbed the phone with trembling hands and dialed. Maggie answered before the first ring finished. Sienna, where are you? Are you okay? Did that man hurt you? Mom, I'm fine. I wasn't kidnapped. But the papers say... The papers are wrong. I ran away, hid in his limousine by accident, and he offered me refuge until things calmed down. Refuge. With Phoenix Sterling, the man Trevor says is his mortal enemy. Maggie's voice wavered between relief and confusion. Trevor is lying. He's using this to deflect attention from his cheating. Phoenix gently took the phone. Mrs. Vale, Phoenix Sterling, your daughter is perfectly safe under my roof. She broke into my limousine while fleeing her wedding. I merely offered her a place to hide until the situation calms down. Sienna watched, fascinated, as Phoenix charmed her mother in real time. Yes, ma'am. No, she has her own room with a lock. Yes, Trevor Langley is really an idiot who doesn't deserve her. He returned the phone, and Sienna heard her mother say with surprising firmness, I like him. Take care of my daughter, Mr. Sterling. I intend to do exactly that. After hanging up, Sienna looked at Phoenix open-mouthed. You just charmed my mother in 30 seconds? I'm charming when I want to be, Phoenix responded with a half-crooked smile. He's never charming, Cole interjected with astonishment. This is completely new behavior. Cole waved the tablet with renewed urgency. Guys, Trevor's on TV, live. The 3 of them crowded around the screen. Trevor Langley, wearing a hideous beige sweater with boat patterns, sat for an interview dripping with false sympathy. Mr. Langley, the reporter began dramatically, what do you have to say about the photos of your bride with Phoenix Sterling? Trevor assumed an expression that should have looked devastated, but mostly looked constipated. I'm absolutely shattered. Sienna and I were completely happy, and then he just took her. I don't know if she was coerced by his power and money, or... He's lying, Sienna yelled at the screen. Do you think Sterling kidnapped her? The reporter asked, leaning in with morbid interest. Trevor made a calculated pause. I don't want to accuse anyone without proof, but the timing is extremely suspicious. He's a known ruthless rival in business. Maybe it's some kind of corporate revenge. He's using me to play victim, Sienna shrieked, completely indignant. Phoenix was already grabbing his own phone, but his eyes had become dangerously cold. He's going to regret this. What are you going to do? Sienna asked. The smile Phoenix gave her was absolutely predatory. I'm going to give an interview and tell my side. With evidence. What evidence? The limousine has internal security cameras. He smiled in a feline way. Everything recorded in high definition. Cole let out a low whistle. This is going to be epic. 2 hours later, Phoenix was sitting in a TV studio. Impeccable suit, relaxed posture but eyes sharp as blades. Sienna and Cole watched from the mansion, glued to the screen. Mr. Sterling, the reporter began cautiously. There are serious accusations that you kidnapped Sienna Vale. Ridiculous, Phoenix interrupted calmly. She broke into my limousine, running away, and I have video proving it. The screen changed, showing the internal security footage. Sienna watched herself jumping into the empty limousine, alone, torn dress, an expression of pure panic. Seconds later, Phoenix entered from the other side. clearly surprised to find her there. "As you can see," Phoenix continued with controlled voice, "she entered before me. She was running from something. I offered help." "Why would she run from her own wedding?" the reporter asked, and Sienna could see the real curiosity in her eyes. Phoenix paused, letting the silence stretch dramatically. "Ask Trevor Langley and his secretary. Diana, right?" The silence in the studio was absolute and shocked. In the mansion, Sienna choked. "He's not going to—" "Are you suggesting—" the reporter tried, voice failing. "I'm not suggesting anything," Phoenix said with deadly calm. "I'm just questioning why a bride would flee a perfect wedding." Calculated pause. "Maybe ask him about 5 o'clock the afternoon before, in his office." The bomb was dropped. Sienna saw, in real time, the reporter's expression change from confusion to shock, and then to voracious understanding. This was journalistic gold. "He just exposed Trevor on national TV," Cole exclaimed with evident admiration. When Phoenix returned to the mansion, Sienna was pacing back and forth in the living room like a caged tiger. "You exposed him on TV," she said as soon as he entered. "He accused me of kidnapping," Phoenix responded, loosening his tie. "I countered with the truth. Now everyone will know he cheated." "Good," Phoenix said simply. "He deserves it." Cole was smiling widely. "The boss is protecting you. He never does that for anyone." Sienna looked at Phoenix, feeling something warm and dangerous expand in her chest. "Thank you." "You're welcome." Phoenix approached, and Sienna felt the air between them change, charge with electricity. "And nobody accuses you of being my accomplice and gets away with it." Sienna's heart raced treacherously. "You're intense," Phoenix smiled, and it was like watching a predator recognize its prey. "I know. Get used to it." And Sienna realized, with crystal clarity and a bit of panic, that she was starting to get used to it, dangerously.
Would you get used to that much exposure, like Sienna? Or is no love worth that price?
Chapter 4. Mysterious Death of the Father.
What if the truth was hidden this whole time?
It seems it was.
The days following Phoenix's explosive interview passed in a kind of surreal calm. The media scandal had diminished considerably after Trevor was publicly disproven, and the media had shifted focus to the next available drama. Sienna remained at the Sterling mansion, not because she needed refuge anymore, but because she simply didn't want to leave. She and Phoenix had fallen into a comfortable routine that neither dared to name. Long conversations about business, politics, and art stretched through the afternoons. Elaborate dinners that Cole insisted on preparing despite being a terrible cook. Moments of shared silence in the library, where Sienna pretended to read while watching Phoenix work, fascinated by the way his brow furrowed when he was concentrated. And the laughter, rare but genuine. Phoenix laughed for real now. Not that sardonic smile he used as armor, but something real and disarmed that completely transformed his face. The chemistry between them was too obvious to ignore, charging every prolonged look and every accidental touch with meaning that Sienna wasn't ready to examine. "You like her," Cole declared one afternoon, leaning against the doorframe of Phoenix's office. Phoenix didn't look up from the documents he was reviewing. "She's interesting." "You're in love," Cole insisted, crossing his arms with evident satisfaction. Phoenix paused, the pen stopping in the middle of a signature. He was silent for so long that Sienna, passing through the hallway, stopped to listen without even realizing it. "Maybe," Phoenix finally admitted, so quietly that Sienna almost didn't hear. She moved away quickly, her heart beating irregularly against her ribs, that single word echoing in her mind like a dangerous promise. It was by accident that Sienna found the folder. She was looking through the clothes Cole had bought for her, reorganizing the guest room closet, when her fingers touched something rigid at the bottom of one of the drawers. A file folder, thick and clearly out of place among t-shirts and jeans. Sienna pulled it out with distracted curiosity, turning it to see the label on the front. She froze. Investigation, Robert Vale, suspicious death, her father's name, in an investigation folder, in Phoenix Sterling's possession. Sienna's hands trembled as she opened the file, her eyes scanning the pages with growing horror. Medical report, toxicology analysis, detailed timeline of her father's last days of life. Robert Vale, deceased 2 years ago. Official cause of death, advanced stage terminal cancer. Prognosis at time of death, approximately 6 months of life remaining. However, death occurred in accelerated fashion. Morphine levels in system exceeded prescribed dosage by significant amount. Possible self-administered or assisted euthanasia. Alternatively, intentional overdose disguised as pain management. The last line was underlined in red. Requires additional investigation. Possible homicide. Sienna felt the floor sway beneath her feet. The words danced on the page, refusing to form complete sense. Her father, morphine, overdose, homicide. "My father?" she whispered to the empty room, her voice breaking. Sienna didn't remember going down the stairs or crossing the hallway to Phoenix's office. She was simply there, standing in the doorway, the folder pressed against her chest so tightly that her fingers ached. Phoenix looked up, and his expression changed instantly when he saw what she was holding. "Shit," he murmured, standing quickly. "Cole should have put that away. Why do you have an investigation about my father?" The words came out like an accusation, harsh and painful. Phoenix circled the desk, moving slowly as if approaching a frightened animal. "Sienna, answer me." She threw the folder onto the desk, the pages scattering in disarray. "Why the hell do you have this?" He sighed heavily, running a hand through his hair in a rare gesture of agitation. "Because I investigated Trevor, and when you investigate someone thoroughly, you discover things, connections, patterns, and I discovered information about your father's death." "What things?" Sienna felt tears burning her eyes, but refused to let them fall. "Your father was sick," Phoenix began carefully. "Terminal cancer. The doctors had given him 6 months to live when he died." "I know that." Sienna's voice rose, raw with pain. "I was there." "He chose to die at home, without aggressive treatment, without artificially prolonging the suffering, but he died earlier than expected," Phoenix continued, voice soft but implacable. "Significantly earlier, and the cause was morphine overdose." Sienna's world crumbled a little more. "What? It could have been an accident," Phoenix rushed to add, "or euthanasia that he himself requested and administered. Or," he paused, and Sienna saw something dark pass through his eyes. "Or someone accelerated the process." "Who would do that?" Sienna was shouting now, all the pain and confusion exploding at once. "He was dying anyway. Why would anyone need to?" "For inheritance?" Phoenix suggested gently. "Control of the company. I don't know for sure yet, but Trevor was very present in those last days of your father's, visiting constantly, had access to the medications." Sienna felt her legs give way. She let herself fall into the nearest chair, processing the implications. "Trevor, you think Trevor, that he—" "I don't accuse without concrete proof," Phoenix said firmly, "but he benefited enormously from your father's death. Your mother's company weakened financially. He offered help, proposed the arranged marriage as a solution. Everything fit together perfectly for him." Sienna looked at her hands trembling in her lap. "My God." Phoenix knelt in front of her, taking her cold hands in his, warm and firm. "Sienna, it might be nothing more than tragic coincidence. Your father was terminal. It could have just been the natural end accelerated by the disease and pain. But you suspect," Sienna said, forcing herself to meet his eyes. "You suspect it was something more." Phoenix held her gaze for a long moment before nodding slowly. "Yes, I suspect." Phoenix had a private investigator, a man named Marcus, who had worked for the Sterling family for decades. Sienna and Phoenix sat together in the office while Marcus presented his findings, each new piece of information like a physical blow. Robert Vale requested euthanasia from his primary physician approximately 3 weeks before passing, Marcus reported, voice professional and distant. "The request is registered in the medical files. Dr. Harrison refused, citing that euthanasia is illegal in this state and that, although he understood Mr. Vale's suffering, he could not assist." "Dad asked to die," Sienna whispered, the revelation hurting more than she expected. Marcus continued. "In the last week of Mr. Vale's life, the morphine dosage increased significantly. Medical records show increases that were not officially prescribed by Dr. Harrison. Trevor had access to the medications," Phoenix asked, leaning forward. "Yes, Trevor Langley visited daily, frequently bringing medical supplies and speaking directly with the nursing staff. However," Marcus paused significantly, "the nurse in charge, a Mrs. Patricia Owens, also had complete access to the medications and was present throughout the period." "And my father was in pain?" Sienna asked, though she already knew the answer. "Extreme pain," Marcus confirmed gently. "Records indicate he was suffering considerably in the final weeks. It's possible, even probable, that he himself increased the morphine dosage to alleviate the suffering. So we'll never know for sure." Sienna's voice was small, lost. "The conclusion is inconclusive," Marcus admitted. "It could have been assisted suicide, with Mr. Vale taking additional morphine on his own, or someone could have helped, either out of mercy or for less noble motives. Without additional evidence, it's impossible to determine definitively." After Marcus left, Sienna sat in silence, staring at her empty hands. "So I'll never know," she said finally. Phoenix moved to sit beside her, pulling her gently into his arms, not with absolute certainty. "But Sienna, Your father was suffering terribly. Maybe he simply chose to end his own pain the only way he could. Sienna let the tears finally fall, wetting Phoenix's shirt as she sobbed. He never said anything to me. Just said he loved me and that everything would be okay. He loved you, Phoenix murmured against her hair. And he didn't want you to see him suffer more than necessary. Maybe that was his last way of protecting you. What if Trevor did something? Sienna asked through the tears. What if he really... Phoenix pulled her back enough to look into her eyes, his expression absolutely serious. Then I find out the truth, and he pays for it. I promise. Later that night, Sienna called her mother. The conversation was painful, but necessary. I knew the morphine had increased, Maggie admitted with a tired voice. But I assumed Robert had asked for it. He was in so much pain, Sienna. So much pain that I wanted to be able to take it from him in any way possible. Was Trevor there in the last days? Sienna asked, gripping the phone tightly. Every day, Maggie confirmed. He helped a lot, brought medicines, talked to the doctors, made sure Robert was comfortable. Long pause. Do you really think Trevor could have... I don't know, Mom, Sienna said honestly, but Phoenix is investigating. If Trevor did something to your father, Maggie said with a dangerous quietness that Sienna rarely heard, I'll never forgive him. But also, your father was dying. Maybe it was mercy in a way. Maybe whoever helped was just relieving his suffering. Maybe, Sienna echoed, but the doubt remained like a stone in her chest. When she hung up, Phoenix was waiting at the bedroom door. Are you okay? He asked. Sienna shook her head. No, but I will be. He crossed the room and pulled her into his arms again, and Sienna allowed herself to melt against him, absorbing his strength and solidity. Thank you, she whispered, for investigating, for telling me, for being here, always, Phoenix promised against her hair, and Sienna realized she believed him completely. Chapter 5. Romance and Trevor returns.
Some doors close forever.
Even if they try to come back.
The following weeks at the Sterling mansion were a strange mixture of domestic normalcy and unresolved sensual tension that left the air constantly charged. Sienna had integrated into the house's routine so naturally that sometimes she forgot this was supposed to be temporary. Phoenix had pulled her into the business world with surprising enthusiasm, teaching her about investments, mergers, and acquisitions as if she were a particularly promising student. You're smart, he had said one afternoon, watching as she analyzed a contract with surgical precision. Scarily smart. Why the hell were you going to marry someone who only talks about golf handicaps? Sienna laughed, marking a problematic clause with red pen, with low self-esteem and sense of family duty. Terrible reasons, Phoenix murmured, but he was smiling, and that was the problem. Phoenix smiled now, constantly, that rare and genuine smile that completely transformed his face, making him look years younger and dangerously more attractive. Sienna made it a point to make him laugh whenever possible, as if it were a personal mission to break that ruthless billionaire facade and find the man underneath. The dinners, which started as casual meals, had transformed into intimate events where they talked for hours about everything and nothing. Cole frequently found them still sitting at the table at 2 a.m, lost in discussions about philosophy, art, or the relative merits of different types of coffee. And the almost kisses. God, the almost kisses. They happened constantly. Phoenix leaning in to grab something near her, stopping when they realized how close they were. Sienna reaching to adjust his tie, fingers stopping on the fabric as their eyes met. Frozen moments where both their breaths caught, and the world reduced to just the impossible space between their lips. But neither closed the distance. Not yet. You two are obvious, Cole declared one morning, entering the kitchen where Sienna and Phoenix were preparing coffee in perfect sync, moving around each other as if they had choreographed the dance. Sienna almost dropped her mug. Obvious about what? Cole looked at her as if she had just asked if the sun was hot. That you're in love. Like, painfully, obviously. Do something about it in love. Sienna felt her face burn. I'm not... Sienna, Cole interrupted with exaggerated patience. He smiles because of you. Phoenix never smiles. Never. I spent 30 years with him and saw that man really smile maybe 5 times. You've lived here for weeks and he smiles every single day. Phoenix, who had been suspiciously quiet during the entire conversation, took a sip of his coffee and left the kitchen without comment. But Sienna saw the tips of his ears turn red. He didn't deny it, Cole pointed out, with evident satisfaction. Shut up, Cole, Sienna murmured, but she was smiling. It was on a quiet Thursday afternoon that the mansion's intercom rang. Sienna was in the library, reviewing investment contracts that Phoenix had left for her to analyze, when she heard raised voices coming from the front gate. She approached the window and froze. Trevor Langley was on the other side of the gate, gesturing wildly at the security guards blocking his entry. Sienna, I need to talk to you, He was shouting loud enough to be heard through the thick glass. Sienna sighed heavily. She knew this confrontation would eventually come, but she had hoped Trevor would have more dignity than to show up unannounced. Apparently, she had overestimated his dignity. She went down the stairs and out the front door, crossing the garden to the gate where Trevor looked 2 seconds away from trying to scale it. "What do you want, Trevor?" she asked, crossing her arms over her chest. His face lit up with pathetic hope. "Sienna, thank God. I need to ask your forgiveness. I messed up terribly. Diana didn't mean anything. It was a complete moment of weakness. You cheated on me," Sienna interrupted with a cold voice, "and then used the media to play victim while painting me as some kind of accomplice in corporate conspiracy. I was desperate," Trevor defended himself, hands gripping the gate bars. "You left me, our alliance, the companies, everything falling apart. It's not about the companies," Sienna's voice rose. "It's about you betraying my trust. And you're living with Phoenix Sterling," Trevor shot back, indignation coloring his words. "Isn't that betrayal? Jumping straight from our relationship into another man's arms?" A deep and dangerously calm voice came from behind Sienna. "She's living here as a guest. Unlike you sticking your tongue in your secretary's mouth on top of Excel spreadsheets." Sienna turned and found Phoenix standing a few steps away, hands in his pockets, expression absolutely predatory. He must have heard the commotion and come out to investigate. "You stole my bride," Trevor accused, pointing a dramatic finger. "I saved her from a marriage to a mediocre cheater," Phoenix corrected calmly. "There's a considerable difference." Trevor ignored Phoenix completely, focusing on Sienna with pleading eyes. "Sienna, please, come back to me. We can start over. Forget all this and begin again." "No, Trevor," Sienna said firmly. "It's over. Definitely over. And about my mother's company. We'll figure it out without you." "How?" Trevor almost laughed, a bitter and unpleasant sound. "You're going bankrupt. Without my family's investment, your mother's company will sink in 6 months." Phoenix stepped forward, positioning himself slightly in front of Sienna in an unconscious protective gesture. "Actually, I offered investment. Mrs. Vale's company will be perfectly fine, without the Langleys." The silence that followed was absolute. Trevor looked from Phoenix to Sienna, processing slowly. "What?" he finally managed to say, voice weak. "Phoenix saved the company," Sienna confirmed, feeling warm satisfaction expand in her chest. "We don't need you anymore, for absolutely anything." Trevor's expression transformed from pleading to fury in seconds. "You're going to regret this, both of you." "You'll what?" Phoenix asked softly, but there was pure steel in his voice. "Sue me. Try to ruin my business. Please, Trevor. You're a small fish pretending to be a shark. Leave before I decide to turn your professional life into a genuine hell." Trevor looked between them for one more moment, realizing he had completely lost, before turning and marching back to his car with what remained of his dignity. Sienna and Phoenix watched in silence as he drove away, the tires squealing dramatically on the asphalt. "Well," Sienna finally said, "that was more pathetic than I expected." "He wears golf sweaters," Phoenix pointed out. "Your expectations should have been considerably low." Sienna laughed, the tension draining from her shoulders. Then something Phoenix had said registered completely. "You really offered investment to my mother." They had started walking back to the mansion, and Phoenix looked at her with that soft expression he reserved only for her now. "Yes, yesterday." She accepted. "Why?" Sienna asked, stopping in the middle of the garden. Phoenix stopped too, turning to face her completely. "Because it's good business. The company has solid potential with the right management. And because," he paused, seeming to search for the right words, "because you matter." Sienna felt her heart jump. "Phoenix, Sienna, I'm not good with words," he admitted, running a hand through his hair in a rare, nervous gesture. "But you changed everything. Completely everything." "How?" She moved closer, closing the distance between them. "You made me feel again," Phoenix said, voice low and intense. "Feel things beyond anger and boredom and emptiness. You make me laugh. You make me want to wake up in the morning because I know you'll be there, probably making some sarcastic comment about my coffee while stealing half of it." Sienna let out a wet laugh, realizing there were tears in her eyes. "I'm in love with you." The words came out before she could stop them, honest and raw and absolutely true. Phoenix closed his eyes for a moment, as if absorbing those words. When he opened them again, there was something fierce and vulnerable in his expression. "Thank God," he murmured, "because I've been obsessed with you since you jumped into my limousine in that torn dress with those panicked eyes." And then he pulled her against him and finally closed the impossible distance between them. The kiss was perfect. There was no other word to describe it. It was desperate and soft at the same time, years of tension finally finding release. Phoenix's hands were on her face, holding her like she was something precious and fragile, while Sienna's fingers tangled in the fabric of his shirt, pulling him closer. When they finally separated, both were breathing heavily, foreheads touching. "That took long enough," a voice said behind them. They turned and found Cole watching from the porch with an absolutely satisfied smile. How long have you been there?" Sienna asked, blushing. "Long enough to see you finally stop dancing around each other like awkward teenagers," Cole responded cheerfully. "Took a while, but you got there." Phoenix shot his brother a deadly look. "Go away, Cole." I'm going, Cole said, still smiling. "Just wanted to say it was about time." When they were alone again, Sienna looked at Phoenix and started laughing. "What's funny?" he asked, but he was smiling too. "Nothing," she said, rising on her toes to kiss him again. "Absolutely everything."
Now it seems like everything is perfect, but there's still one last move to destroy such true love.
Chapter 6, Final Revelation and Happily Ever After.
This time, I'm not running.
Trevor's final attempt came 2 weeks after the kiss in the garden, and it was as desperate as it was pathetic. Sienna and Phoenix were returning from a romantic dinner when Cole called, voice urgent. "You need to see this. Now." When they arrived at the mansion, Cole had the tablet open to a newly published article. The headline screamed, "Proven. Sterling stole the bride. Affair was going on for months." The photos showed Sienna and Phoenix in various intimate moments, kissing in the garden, embracing on the porch, walking hand in hand through the mansion gate. "Trevor hired paparazzi," Phoenix said calmly, but Sienna saw the cold fury in his eyes. "He's trying to prove we were having an affair before the wedding," Sienna murmured, feeling nausea rise. Cole was already typing furiously. "Not for long. Look at this." He showed the screen where he had created a meticulously detailed timeline. "All these photos are from weeks after the canceled wedding. You were already publicly separated. It's not cheating. It's a new relationship between two single adults." "Cole, you're a genius," Sienna said, relieved. "I know," he responded modestly, "but there's more." Phoenix's investigator, Marcus, had continued investigating Trevor discreetly, and he had finally found something devastating. "The alliance contract between your father's company and the Langley family," Marcus explained in a video conference, "was forged. Robert Vale's signature is fake. Handwriting analysis confirms it. Your father never signed a merger agreement or matrimonial alliance. Trevor fabricated the entire document." Sienna felt the floor disappear beneath her feet. "He lied about everything." "About everything," Marcus confirmed. "There was no agreement between the families. Trevor manipulated both mothers, making them believe it was Robert's wish that you two marry. He wanted control of the company through marriage. Pure corporate fraud." Phoenix wasted no time. The next morning, the media exploded with the complete exposure. Trevor Langley was publicly unmasked. Cheating, lies about business agreements, manipulation of two grieving families, corporate document forgery. 48 hours later, he was arrested for corporate fraud and forgery. Sienna watched the news with cold satisfaction. "He finally paid. Justice," Phoenix said simply, pulling her into his arms. But there was one last piece of the puzzle. Sienna's father's nurse, Patricia Owens, finally agreed to talk. They met at a discreet cafe, and Patricia held Sienna's hands with tears in her eyes. "Your father asked me," she confessed with a broken voice. "He was in so much pain. Sienna, pain that normal medications couldn't touch anymore. He begged me to increase the morphine, to let him go in peace before the pain destroyed him completely." Sienna felt tears run down her face. "And you helped. I adjusted the dosage as he asked," Patricia admitted. "And he told me, I want to go in peace, before the pain turns me into something my daughter won't recognize. Take care of my family. Trevor had no involvement in this. It was your father's choice." Sienna sobbed, relieved and devastated at the same time. "Thank you for telling me, for taking care of him. He loved you so much," Patricia whispered. "Talked about you constantly. You were his pride." When Sienna left the cafe, Phoenix was waiting. She fell into his arms and cried, but this time, they were tears of closure, not doubt. 6 months passed like a dream. Vale Company was recovered and flourishing under the partnership with Sterling Enterprises. Trevor was serving a 3-year sentence for fraud, and Sienna had officially moved into the mansion, not as a guest, but as part of the family. She and Phoenix were officially a couple, photographed at social events, mentioned in society columns as the most unexpected romance of the year. Cole found it all hilarious. "You're literally a modern fairy tale," he declared one evening during dinner at an elegant restaurant. Bride flees bad wedding, breaks into billionaire's limousine. They fall in love. It's ridiculously perfect. It wasn't quite like that, Sienna protested, but she was smiling. It was exactly like that, Phoenix corrected, holding her hand on the table. Cole took a sip of wine, eyes gleaming with mischief. So, when's your wedding? Sienna choked on her own drink. Wedding? Cole, Phoenix said with a warning tone, subtle as a brick. You live together. She runs business with you. You're married in everything but paper, Cole insisted with irrefutable logic. We haven't talked about it, Sienna murmured, feeling her face heat up. Phoenix was quiet for a moment, and then took her hand firmly. Sienna, I'm not a man of grand, elaborate romantic gestures, but you broke into my limousine and broke into my life, and I don't want you leaving either. Sienna's heart stopped. Phoenix, marry me? He asked, simple and direct, dark eyes intense on hers. No pressure, no failing companies, no drama, just us. You and me. You're proposing to me in a random restaurant, Sienna exclaimed, torn between laughter and tears. I met you when you jumped into my limousine barefoot and panicked, Phoenix pointed out with irrefutable logic. Traditional romance was never our style. Sienna laughed through the tears, feeling pure happiness expand in her chest. Yes, I'll marry you, Cole clapped. Finally, I was about to propose for you guys. The wedding was small and intimate, exactly how Sienna wanted it. A small chapel, only close friends and family. Maggie cried with happiness in the front row. As she walked to the altar, Sienna thought, last time I did this, I ran. This time, I'm running to him. Phoenix was waiting for her with that rare and genuine smile he reserved only for her. The priest began the ceremony. As Sienna Vale, do you take Phoenix Sterling? Yes, Sienna interrupted him, laughing. 1,000 times yes. Before I panic and run again. The chapel erupted in laughter. Phoenix laughed, pulling her closer. You're not going to run. Never again, Sienna promised. You're my permanent limousine now. Terrible metaphor, Phoenix murmured, but he was smiling. But true, she insisted. And then he kissed her, and it was perfect. At the reception, Cole made a memorable speech. My brother found a bride running away in his limousine, literally, and somehow this turned into a love story. Life is strange and wonderful. Maggie hugged Sienna tightly. Your father would have loved Phoenix. I'm sure he's happy now, seeing you truly happy. I know, Mom, Sienna whispered. I feel it too. Later, when they were finally alone, Phoenix pulled Sienna onto the porch under the stars. I can't believe it all started because I broke into your limousine, she said, resting her head on his shoulder. Best break-in of my life, Phoenix responded, kissing her hair. What if I hadn't gotten into that limousine? I would have lived bored forever, he said with absolute certainty. And now I have you, and chaos, and laughter, and love. Everything I didn't know was missing. Sienna turned in his arms, reaching up to kiss him softly. Who knew that running from the altar would lead me to you? Fate has questionable sense of humor, Phoenix murmured against her lips, but extremely effective. I love you, Sienna Sterling, my favorite runaway bride. Your only runaway bride, Sienna corrected. And the only one you need, and the only one I want, Phoenix completed. Forever. She jumped into my limousine running from the wrong wedding, Phoenix thought, watching Sienna sleep in his arms on that first night as husband and wife, and ended up finding the right one, with me. Chaotic, unexpected, absolutely perfect. I ran from the altar barefoot, tearing my dress, with no plan at all, Sienna thought, feeling Phoenix's steady heartbeat beneath her palm. And I found the man who saved me, loved me, and made me laugh at the chaos. The best escape in history, and as they slept intertwined, two hearts that almost lost each other beat in perfect sync, proving that sometimes the best love stories begin with an accidental break-in, a torn dress, and a limousine in the wrong place at the absolutely right time.
And now I'm going to tell you some fun facts you might not know about this story. Sienna never said, I love you to Trevor. In 2 years of a relationship, she only said, I like you. Phoenix only smiled 5 times in 30 years, according to Cole, before meeting Sienna. After her, he smiles daily. Cole is the only one Phoenix trusts completely. This only changes when he falls madly in love with Sienna. Sienna has photographic memory for physical details. She describes Trevor's big nose and thinning hair with surgical precision. Sienna ran barefoot for 3 blocks before finding the limousine. The wedding cost $50,000, all paid for and wasted. Charles, the limo driver, was distracted on his phone. That's why he didn't see Sienna getting in. The limo was bulletproof and cost $250,000. The story takes place over 6 months, from the canceled wedding to the real wedding. There are exactly 3 villains. Cole serves as comic relief in every chapter. The Sterling Mansion has 47 rooms. And to watch another incredible story, click on the video showing up on your screen now and check it out.